I never anticipated sharing this narrative. My life underwent an unforeseen transformation. My name is Sophia, and I have reached 40 years of age. I have been a single mother nurturing my son. I am alone. His name is Logan, and he is now 22 years old. We have consistently maintained a profound closeness. We supported each other through all circumstances. One evening, an unforeseen event occurred. Please subscribe to my channel to enable me to share more captivating, genuine stories like this one. Additionally, ensure you watch this video in its entirety and like it, as the narrative promises to be exceptionally intriguing. Kindly use the like button to demonstrate your support. Logan was fatigued and informed me that he was unwell. His relentless work and extensive learning were evident. I informed him that he may repose on my bed for a short duration. The night was frigid, and our residence requires time to warm, so I enveloped him in a heavy blanket. Initially, everything appeared ordinary, with a mother assisting her son. Nevertheless, as I reclined next to him, I sensed him draw nearer. He likely sought warmth, and I initially dismissed it, but then he tenderly encircled me with his arms, drawing me near, reminiscent of his earlier days. I was astonished. However, I chose to overlook it. He likely required solace. I sensed his warmth alongside me and his rhythmic breathing as we reclined. I observed that Logan's respiration diminished, as if he were succumbing to slumber. The room was so still that I could perceive my own heartbeat. It was both unexpected and soothing. I refrained from moving, wishing to avoid disturbing him, convincing myself it was merely a mother providing solace to her kid. Subsequently, he repositioned himself, drawing nearer beneath the blanket. I sensed his arm constrict over me, and I momentarily became immobile. Conflicted in my thoughts, a portion of me desired to withdraw, yet another remained motionless. An undeniable tension permeated the atmosphere, leaving me perplexed about its origin until an unexpected event transpired that astonished me. I observed an object of considerable firmness beneath the cover. Unexpectedly, my heart raced. I endeavored to maintain composure and reminded myself that he was my offspring. Perhaps he was oblivious to my presence as I attempted to suppress the escalating anxiety within me. I reassured myself that that was merely a fleeting period, an uncomfortable circumstance that would eventually dissipate, but the longer we remained, the more unlike the atmosphere became. Logan maintained proximity, and his respiration remained consistent, while the warmth between us intensified. I intended to articulate a thought to disrupt the silence, yet the words eluded me. I felt confined in that moment, uncertain of my emotions at the time. Logan adjusted his position, raising his head to gaze at me. His eyes had an unfamiliar softness, evoking a sensation of both safety and unease. Although he remained silent, his stare appeared to inquire whether all was well. I attempted to grin, aiming to alleviate the tension, but it merely intensified the quiet. Logan's hand rested on my arm, warm and unwavering. I sensed his fingertips gliding softly, seemingly instinctively. Although it was a minor gesture, each contact elicited an undeniable response within me. I endeavored to maintain a steady breath, concealing the rapidity of my heartbeat from him. I was uncertain of how to act or respond, so I remained motionless, enveloped in the peculiar bond between us. I reassured myself that it was merely a mother consoling her son. Nonetheless, his proximity made it impossible to disregard the profound emotions surfacing. I experienced confusion intertwined with comfort, accompanied by an unforeseen warmth. Logan appeared oblivious to my internal turmoil, remaining present with a gentle touch that provided solace, as if it were entirely ordinary. His breathing returned to a tranquil state, and his eyes closed as though he were on the verge of slumber, yet his hand gradually ascended my arm. A chill coursed through me as he opened his eyes. He locked eyes with me, a query evident in his expression, as if inquiring whether I felt the same inexplicable attraction he did. I barely mumbled his name. I wanted to communicate my desire to cease all activities and withdraw, although I was unable to do so. The conflict between us was excessively intense. It was as intense as an impending emotional storm. Although we remained silent, the atmosphere was laden with unarticulated sentiments that we both perceived but could not express. He instinctively leaned closer to me. My heart raced and my thoughts whirled, yet I could not summon the resolve to withdraw. I was conflicted between my maternal role and the unfamiliar emotions that arose as he approached. I felt my breath hitch. All other thoughts dissipated, leaving solely that moment between us. Logan's hand rested on my shoulder, his fingers lingering as if he too were uncertain of the surrounding world, which seemed to vanish. My attention was entirely on his warmth and the steady cadence of his heart, which I could almost hear for an instant. I shut my eyes, attempting to compose myself. I recognized the necessity to withdraw and disrupt the intimacy, although he tenderly brushed a strand of hair off my face. It was a straightforward, kind gesture, yet it caused my heart to throb in inexplicable ways. I opened my eyes and saw him gazing at me with profound trust and gentleness. His face was so near that I could discern every detail, the minute freckles, the contour of his lips, and the manner in which his eyes sought mine. His glance exhibited a weakness that reflected my own. We were completely in the moment, as if time had stopped. My thoughts were in disarray, saturated with uncertainty and perplexity, yet I remained still. I felt an attraction to him, the boy I had nurtured, yet in that instant, he seemed like a stranger, as if we were destined to remain in stasis indefinitely. Logan withdrew slightly, disrupting the silence. He averted his gaze, visibly embarrassed, emitting a faint, tremulous giggle while massaging the nape of his neck. It grounded me in reality, reminding me of our proximity. I inhaled deeply, attempting to soothe the torrent of emotions within. "Apologies, Mother," he stated. Gently, his voice wavering, I did not intend to create discomfort. He averted my eyes, and I discerned a flush on his cheeks, indicating he was grappling with the same perplexity as I was. I want to soothe him, to convey that all was well. However, the words eluded me. After many years, I experienced discomfort in the presence of my own son. I extended my hand to his shoulder and offered a slight grin, aiming to alleviate the tension. "It is acceptable, Logan," I stated gently. "It has only been the two of us. For an extended while, we were likely both experiencing a sense of disorientation." He acknowledged this with a nod, and I perceived a momentary glimmer of relief in his eyes. However, just as the tension began to dissipate, the doorbell rang, abruptly jolting us back to reality and severing the connection that had formed between us. I swiftly calmed my pounding heart and proceeded to answer the door. I was grateful for the interruption as I opened the door and discovered our neighbor, Luke, waiting there. Luke had consistently been amicable, a reliable source of assistance. He grinned. However, his gaze remained on me longer than customary. I swiftly recognized that I continued to experience the residual energy from the encounter with Logan. I endeavored to regain my composure, hoping Luke had not observed anything unusual. "Greetings, Sophia," he remarked amiably. "I intended to visit and ascertain if you required any assistance. I understand it has been frigid recently, and I am available to assist with any heating issues you may encounter." A surge of relief enveloped me, and for an instant, I permitted myself to unwind. "Thank you, Luke," I responded with a smile. "The house does become quite cold. I would value your assistance." Luke entered, and I sensed Logan observing from the corridor. His expression was inscrutable. I looked back at him and, for an instant, perceived some emotion in his eyes, perhaps jealousy, although he swiftly concealed it. It astonished me. While Luke checked the weather and we engaged in superficial conversation, I contemplated whether he harbored deeper feelings than he revealed, often glancing at Logan, who remained silent. His stare was piercing as he observed us both. His discomfort intensified the tension in the room. I felt conflicted between the need to alleviate tensions with Luke and the awareness of Logan's unwavering gaze upon us. After many minutes, Luke faced me with a congenial smile. "Understood. Everything appears satisfactory here, Sophia. Simply contact me if you require any further assistance." I expressed my gratitude to him, and as he departed, I sensed the tension between Logan and myself intensify. I shut the door and turned to see him standing there, arms crossed, with a grave expression on his face. "Are you well, Logan?" I inquired, seeking clarification. He averted his gaze, shrugging, as he contemplated his thoughts. "I am well. I merely did not anticipate Luke's visit. My sole intention was to communicate with him to comprehend the situation between us, but before I could articulate anything further, he bypassed me en route to his room. The door closed gently behind him, and I remained there, experiencing a blend of comfort, uncertainty, and an awareness that something remained unsolved. I gazed at the shut door. Experiencing an inexplicable agony, my thoughts surged with the recent events, the intimacy we had experienced, his look throughout Luke's presence, and the unarticulated tension between us that seemed poised to explode at any time. I entered my room and seated myself on the bed's edge, reflecting on all that had transpired. I recognized that I could not indefinitely disregard it, although I was uncertain about how to confront it. At that moment, I heard a gentle knock at my door. My heart raced. Was Logan returning to enter? With a composed tone, Logan articulated his entry and opened the door. With an inscrutable expression, he approached and took a seat. Beside me, with his hands resting in his lap, we sat in silence for a minute, the atmosphere laden with unexpressed words, "Mom." He ultimately stated, his voice like a murmur, "I do not comprehend what is occurring. I apologize if I created an awkward situation earlier. I simply..." He faltered, appearing to grapple with articulating his thoughts. I placed my hand upon his and administered a gentle squeeze. "It's okay, Logan. We're both probably feeling a bit lost right now. Our prolonged solitude has occasionally caused confusion." He nodded gradually, his gaze fixed on his hand. He then gazed up at me, his expression imbued with feelings I could not fully decipher, yet it seemed distinct. I was uncertain how to reply. I spoke gently, unsure of what to say. My heart either ached with perplexity, or I briefly contemplated embracing him and assuring him that everything would be all right. However, I was uncertain if that was what he required, or if it would exacerbate the situation. Consequently, I remained seated, allowing the stillness to convey our sentiments. I inhaled deeply and gazed into his eyes. "Logan, perhaps we should pause and reflect on the situation comprehensively." I softly said, "It's okay to feel a sense of closeness, but it's also acceptable to require some distance to contemplate matters." He nodded slowly, then unexpectedly. He rested his head on my shoulder as he did in his childhood. It was reassuring, recognizable, yet simultaneously odd. My heart softened, and I embraced him, holding him close for the first time in a considerable duration. I believed that we need not possess all the answers immediately. We could resolve everything incrementally. As we embraced, I experienced a profound sense of tranquility and peaceful optimism that regardless of the circumstances, we would navigate through this together. We remained in that position for some time. As we sat in silence, it seemed that the turmoil between us could dissipate merely via proximity. Nevertheless, I understood that the reality was far more complex. The warmth between us was reassuring, although an unpleasant sensation lingered, an awareness of an underlying issue that neither of us could disregard. After some time, Logan raised his head and gazed at me, his expression grave. "Mother, I'm unsure of how to handle this situation. I don't want to add unnecessary complexity to our situation, but I also can't ignore it." His words lingered, laden with doubt. It seemed he was attempting to articulate something we both wished to avoid. I swallowed nervously, my thoughts racing as I sought the appropriate words. But before I could speak, a knock resonated at the door. We both flinched, taken aback, and shared a brief look. It appeared that the other side knew, and the knock's urgency increased the room's tension. I rose and hastily proceeded to the door. My pulse raced in my chest as I opened it. Luke was standing there once more. Exhibiting concern, Sophia, I apologized for the interruption. I merely wished to ascertain if everything is okay, as you were rather unsettled. I briefly observed Logan, who was scrutinizing us intently, his expression inscrutable. I endeavored to maintain a steady tone as I said, "Thank you, Luke, but we are fine." During a tranquil evening, Luke momentarily regarded me before shifting his contemplative stare towards Logan. "Understand, but please recall that I am readily available next door should you require assistance." Upon Luke's departure, I shut the door and turned to find Logan remaining in place, observing me with unwavering intensity. He rose and gradually approached me. I sensed my heart beating once more, the atmosphere laden with unexpressed sentiments. He halted upon reaching me, his demeanor shifting as if he was in the midst of an internal battle. "Perhaps we need not pursue this, Mother," he stated softly, his voice trembling. "Perhaps we require time." I acquiesced. Slowly, the same confusion weighs heavily on my heart. "You are correct, Logan. We must both contemplate thoroughly. Let us refrain from hastening this process." He nodded as well, and we stayed close but cautious, as if we stood on the brink of an uncontrollable circumstance. Logan's retreat to his chamber marked a conclusion, and simultaneously, the inception of an indefinable entity. I contemplated what the future would entail for us.